So in the last class, we are discussing about the first unit revision. So in that, so we are discussing about just we are revising the topics. What is a DBMS? And what are the advantages of DBMS? What are the applications of DBMS? Okay, and compare with the file system. Right. So these type of topics we are already discussed in the last class. Okay. So now we try to start the remaining topics of the class. Okay. In the last class we already covered this. So overview of the database, Okay, and what is the like DBMS and the advantages of DBMS, where we are using the DBMS, and what are the types of softwares? Different types of softwares are available to maintaining the database, and where we are using this. So banking applications, university applications, airlines, railway reservations, finance, telecommunications, so etc. Okay. So in this type of way, we are based upon to the number of applications, right? So number of applications based upon the number of applications based upon to the DBMS. Okay, and we are compare with the file system versus the DBMS also. Okay, so what are the drawbacks when we are compare the file system? So what is a file system? File system is nothing but a collection of records. Okay, but that is related to the secondary storage device. But here we need to each and every programmer program or user having the should be having the programming knowledge. So without programming knowledge, they can't easily access the data. So that's the problem. And another thing, for each and every operation, whether it is a retrieving the data or updating the data or modifying the data or inserting the data, so it will be consumes a lot of time to performing the operation. So that means some time is needed to performing the execution, and again we try to check the errors. After that, we try to run that program. So in that type of way only we are able to receive the outputs. In the case of file processing approach, okay. So accessing the data is difficult. So that is the first one, and end users not easily friendly or move easily with the system. So that is the drawback for the file processing approach. And another thing is definitely each and every user having the programming knowledge. So otherwise they can't access the system. So those are the drawbacks for the file processing approach. So and we are considered some of the drawbacks in the last class also. So those are the first one is the data redundancy. The name is implies. So when we are allowing the duplication of the data into the system, then we can't retrieve our required data. Why? Because it will be creates a lot of problems like data inconsistency, or maybe accessing the data is difficult. So why? Because if the same type of data is available in more than one location, then it will be leads to the wastage of the storage space. At the same time, we can't retrieve our required data. So for example, if we want to retrieve some particular person details, then if it will be display more than one, then how we can find out our required data in that? So that's the drawback. Am I right? So that means in the case of file processing system or file management system, we can't able to identify so whether the data is existed already or not. So we can't find out that. So that's the drawback. So that's why occurring these problems. Okay, so data accessing is difficult, and another one is the data inconsistency. So these three type of problems are occurred, and another one is the data isolation. The name is implies. Isolation means nothing but is separation. So when we are storing some data into the file processing approach, then that data will be stored into the different types of locations. So the data will be scattered into the different locations, and we can't to combine. If any time of the city, if any situation is needed, we can't combine the different locations of the data into a single data. So that's the drawback. Okay, and another one is the integrity problems. In the last class also I'm saying about this. Integrity means we are inserting our required conditions. Okay, so for example, maybe we are changing the condition already. So we want to retrieve some data. Okay, for example, if I want to retrieve the data from the banking applications, for example, I'm considering one banking application. So here my condition is how many number of customers are maintain the balance more than 10,000. So I want the particular names of that particular customers. For example, if I'm raising the query like this, then how we can solve the problem in the file browsing approach? So we need to contact the programmers and explain the situation, and according to that situation, they can modify the program and finally check the errors and run the program. After that, only we are able to see the output. So that means here each and every time we should be based upon to the programmers. Why? Because here end users can't easily move with the system or application. Okay. So for example, after that, maybe I'm changing the condition like this. For example, maybe who are maintaining the 5,000. So if I need to know how many number of customers maintain the minimum balance 5,000 in their accounts. I want to know about their names. or details, then again the same procedure. So that means here, so time consuming occur, and here programmers definitely each and every time we need to interact with them to solving the problem, and we can't change the conditions according to our requirement. So that means in the previous case, I'm saying about minimum balance 10,000. Now I'm saying about minimum balance 5,000. So that means according to the situation, definitely we will be changing the conditions. I'm right or not? So if we are not easily insert our required conditions, so that's the problem. Integrity means that one. Okay. So integrity constraints. So we're already discussing about this. Integrity constraints are used for inserting correct data into the database. So that means these are restricting the users. For example, if we are enter some data, so when we are enter the data into the some particular system, first of all, it will be verified whether it is correct or not. If it is correct only, it will be entered. For example, we are already using the check constraint. Am I right? So check constraint. For example, each and every employee salary should be greater than 5,000. This is the condition. Then how we can set the condition? Simple. Check off sal greater than 10,000. When we are during the creation of the table, if we are mentioned that constraint, then definitely it will be accepting if the salary is greater than 5,000 only. Am I right or not? So that means integrity constraints are used for inserting some conditions and inserting correct data. Okay, whatever it may be required data for the users, only that data will be entered by the users. Okay, and another one is the concurrent access. In the case of the name is implies here more than one user access at a time. At this remote situation, we need to provide the security and we need to assign the permissions accessibility. So that means otherwise maybe the chance of occurring the loss of data or modification of the data or deletion of the data, okay, or updation of the data. So when we are allow more than one user at a time, so we can't manage easily in the case of file management system. So these are the drawbacks we're already discussed in the last class, and another one is the atmospheric. So that means, for example, if you are doing some transaction, in the transaction having more than one operation. So in the last class also I'm saying one example. For example, if we want to transfer the amount from our account to the our friend's account, for example, some amount, okay, through phone pay, for example. Okay, if you want to transfer, for example, 1,000 rupees sent to your friend account, for example. So how many number of actions are here? So two actions. One is the deducting 1,000 rupees from our account, so that is first action. Second action is, so the deducting 1,000 rupees is added to the our friend's account. So for example, after the completion of first action, so maybe occurring some failure. So then what happened? So amount is debited from your account, but that amount is not added to your friend's account. So are you accept this transaction? So not accepted. Am I right? So that means atomosity means, so we can consider either all actions of the transaction, okay, or not consider any one of the action in a transaction. So that means error type of transactions are not considered. So if we want to consider, if it is completed successfully in all respectives, then only it will be considered. Otherwise, not considered. Okay. So that type of the operation will be referred as a atomosity. Okay, that is also not possible in the file management system. So another one is the security and access control. So previously I mentioned about that. So if they so that means anyone can easily access that. So that means we can't provide some separate passwords. For example, in the case of database management system, so we can create number of users. I'm right. So we're already creating the user. How we are creating the user? So create username identified by password. Am right? So in the last class also we are creating some user, I think file 11. Am right? So how we are creating the file 11? So create user cs file 11. Okay, that is the username identified by password. Means here we can give any type of the password according to our requirement. So again I'm using the same thing, cs file 11. So then user is created. Now we try to give the permissions for to that user. How we are giving the permissions? That, so grant all privileges to cs file level. So in this type of way, we can create the users and they can assign their own passwords. I'm right or not? Okay, so that means here the database administrator can regulate the users and he can monitor the users. So and he can assign the permissions. to the particular users. So that means we try to regulate the users and we are not giving the permissions onto the each and every that. And here we are providing the security also, but the type of the thing is not possible in the case of file management system. Okay, so there is the drawback. So whatever it may be, I'm consider up to now drawbacks of the file management system. So those are will be treated as advantages for the DBMS. Okay, please just wait 1 minute. Okay. I hope my voice is audible, am I right? So screen is also visible. Is it right or not? May I continue my session? May I continue my session? Please respond anyone. May I continue my session? Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm asking number of times the same question. Because here I'm not having any other screen. So whether you visible or not. Okay, so that's why I'm asking number of times. Don't worry about that. Okay. So up to now we are discussing about the drawbacks of the file management system. Now we try to discuss about the advantages of DBMS, data independence. We're already discussing about the data abstraction. Okay, in the case of data abstraction, how we can view the data. So three types of data abstractions are there. So data abstraction means nothing but when we are saving some data into the DBMS, then it will be providing the abstract view of the data. What is the meaning of abstract view of the data? So it will be providing necessary details, essential details only to the users. So that means need not to giving the unnecessary details. Okay, so that is nothing but data abstraction. So in the data abstraction, here we are providing three types of abstractions are there. So what are the physical level of the abstraction, logical level of the abstraction, and external level of the abstraction. So in the case of physical level of the abstraction, so we are providing how we are storing the data into the database, right? So the keyword is how. So that is the lowest level of the data abstraction. Okay, so we try to discuss in the next topic. So maybe we will be discussed in the next topic. Okay, and logical level data abstraction is what type of data is stored into the database. The keyword is what. So that means when we are storing some data into the database, so first of all verify. So what type of data it is and what type of relationship is existing with the attributes. Okay, so the type of the thing will be verified into the logical level data abstraction, and another one is the external level abstraction. So that means here, so it will be treated as a view. So view means here we are, it will be changed from one view to the another view. So that means the same type of data is not available in the view. So that means different types of formats are produced from the same database. For example, if the student considers student database, so maybe some of the members asking about student number and student name. Maybe some of the members asking student number and student name and CGPA. And some of the members asking about the total details of the semesters with the student number and student name like this. So that means here we are providing three views. So in this type of way, we are providing any number of views from the same existing database. Okay. So here what is the data independence means the name is implies here it will be work like as the independent. So that means that is not based upon to the any other. If we are changing some data, so that is not giving any type of the impact into the existing database. The type of the thing will be referred as data independence. So in the case of data independence, here we are consider the two types of independences. What are they? Logical data independence and another one is the physical level data independence. If we are performing the modifications in the physical level, so if that type of the modifications are not giving any type of the effects to the its higher level of the abstraction, that is nothing but a physical level data independence. In the same way, logical level data independence means if we are performing the modifications in the logical level, so those type of modifications are not giving any type of impact to the its higher level. So there is nothing but a logical level data independence. Okay, so why we need to change the modifications in some type of situations? We need to perform the modifications. I'm right. So maybe we try to performing some regular basics. For example, maybe every 1 year, every 6 months, every 3 months, like this. So we need to change the data. So otherwise, maybe unwanted data may be existed into the database. Am I right? So maybe the chance of occurring the duplication also So in this type of a, maybe we need to filter the data. So at that time of the situation, we need to perform the modification. Even though we are performing any type of the modification, that is not giving any impact to the its higher level. So here just to try to see, application program should be as independent as possible from the details of data representation and storage. The DBMS can provide an abstract view of the data instead the application code from the such details. Okay. And the next one is efficient data access. So that means when we are search some data, okay, when you search for some data, so then definitely we will retrieve our required data only. For example, if we want to search the particular employee whose number is, for example, 20, okay, whose employee number is, whose number is 20, only that particular employee details will be displayed. So then how we can search the details, select star from EMP, where E number equal to 20. So then it will be performing the efficient access. Why? Because here before entering the data into the database, here we are verify first of all. So if you set the primary key is there, then definitely duplication of data is not occurred. Then we can easily search. Am I right? So if you are not set the primary key, so at in that type of the situation, maybe the chance so the same type of number is existed more than one time, then we can't retrieve our required data. So that is that is nothing but a not a efficient data access. Okay. So a DBMS utilizes variety of sophisticated techniques to store and retrieve data efficiently. The future is especially important if the data is stored on the external storage devices. So data integrity. So just we are discussed in the previous session. Integrity constraints such as unique account number of each person should be identified. So data may be updated incorrectly if integrity is not maintained. So I'm right or not? So if you are not maintaining the integrity, so then maybe the chance of occurring the so many problems. So in the same way, security, different constraints can be there for each type of access right to each module of the information in database, thus ensuring the access database is through proper channel by proper person. So that means here, if the database administrator giving the chance to access the data, then only the users can able to view or maybe they performing the operations on data. I'm right. That is nothing but is security. And here also occurring the redundancy. Maybe some of the members having the doubt. So in the case of DBMS, why the chance of occurring the redundant? Here we are not completely eliminating the redundant data, just to try to minimize up to some extent. Okay, so just to try to reduce the occurrence of redundancy. Okay, so that is nothing but here compare with the file management system. Here we are able to reduce the occurrence of the redundancy. So another one is data sharing. Many application programs use the same data simultaneously and they refer to as data sharing. Due to this feature of database, the storage capacity is reduced to minimum. These advantages make database system very popular. So that means here, so if we are consider the distributed database, okay, if it is a distributed database, we can access from anywhere. So then we need not to store for each and every location. Then automatically reducing the storage space and they can able to access through some network. Then it will be automatically increasing the efficient access. At the same time, it will be growing the application rapidly. Am I right or not? So that means here we are considered distributed database, concurrent access and crash recovery. So that means when we are allow more than one user at a time to retrieve the or to access the same data, so then maybe the chance of occurring some problems in some type of situations. So at the time of the situation, we need to recover the data also. So that means in some type of situations occurring the system crashes, maybe hardware failure, so maybe some type of problems. Okay, so whatever it may be the failure, once the data is committed to the disk, we can able to retrieve the data. Okay, so with the help of checkpoints and timestamp values, we can easily recover that. That can be referred as crash recovery. Okay, another one is the reduced application development time. So here we can easily develop the application within the time. Okay, DBMS supports many important functions that are common to many applications accessing data stored in the DBMS. Okay, in the last class also we are discussing about the database users and user interfaces. Okay, here we are consider some types of users. So here the who are maybe interacting with the DBMS, so they can be performing different types of roles. Maybe some of the users performing the authority, maybe some of the users receiving the functionality, maybe some of the users based upon the interface. Okay, maybe some of the users creators. I'm right. So in this type of here, different types of users are there. So we can try to see now. So database users are the only who really and take the benefits of the database. There will be different types of users depending on their need and way of accessing the database. So that means here different types of users are considered depending on their need. Okay, and way of the accessing the database. Application programmers. So the name is implies here they can develop some applications and they can including some programming in that application. Okay, so that means here programming means whether maybe we are using, so actually we run the C program, but it will be runs the functionality of DBMS. So in the same way, we can run the function, run the program of Java, but it will be connected to the database functionality. So we try to see that JDBC, so Java database connectivity. Okay, so they are the developers who interact with the database by means of DML queries. So these DML queries are written in the application programs like C, CPP, Java, Pascal, etc. So that means they are the developers who interact with the database by means of DML queries. By using DML queries, so these users developing the applications and interconnected with the functionality of the DBMS. So these queries converted into the object code to communicate with the database. For example, writing a C program to generate the report of employees who are working in a particular department with involve a query to fetch the data from the database. It will include an embedded SQL query in the C program. So that means actually we run the C program, but in that C program, we are already embedded the functionality of the SQL. Okay, and that will be referred as a embedded SQL. So what it means? So in the C language, we are including the functionality of the database. So that means when we are compile that program and run that program, then it will be automatically connects to the SQL and runs the functionality of the database. Okay, so that will be referred as a embedded SQL. Please remember this. In the exam point of view, also asking about this. What is the embedded SQL? Can you giving any type of explanations? So then we can write any one of the program. So we will try to cover that in the next classes. Okay. Uh, so that means here, for example, we need to fetch some records of the database. That is possible. The type of the functionality is included into the C program. So when we run that program, then automatically fulfill that functionality. So next one is the sophisticated users. So the name is implies satisfied users. So it means if they are having any type of the problems, they can able to generate some query and they will be satisfied. For example, who are the sophisticated users? Just only us. So or maybe students or maybe faculty. Okay, so they are directly interacted with the queries. So they know about the SQL queries. Okay, so that means they are database developers or who write the SQL queries to select, insert, or delete, update data. So you are already know about some SQL commands. For example, if I'm asking some data, then then how you can fetch the data from the database? Just you write the query. I'm right or not? For example, if I'm asking how you can change the table name, so which type of command is used? Rename command. I'm right. Rename old name to new name. So then automatically changing the table. So that means when I am raising some situation, then according to that situation, you can generate the solution. Why? Because you know about the queries. So that type of the users will be referred as sophisticated users. They do not use any application or programs to request the database. They directly interact with the database by means of query language. So that means here we are directly connected with the database. These users will be scientists, engineers, analysts who thoroughly study SQL and DBMS to apply concepts in their requirement. In short, we can say this category includes designers and developers of DBMS and SQL. So that means who knows about the SQL commands. So those type of users will be referred as sophisticated users. So next one is the specialized users. The image implies here specialized. So why? Because so they are developing some database application programs. So they are the developers who develop the complex programs to the requirement. So that means so these type of users developing some applications and that applications so we can use it into the organization. So who are the developers actually? So the type of the users will be referred as specialized users, and another one is the standalone users. These users will have the standalone database for their personal use. These kinds of database will have ready-made database packages which will have menus and graphical interfaces. So that means, so these type of users completely based upon to the database functionality, but using some graphical interfaces. So that means they simply click some buttons, then it will automatically perform the insert operation. So that means they are having some programming knowledge at the same time. So they, these type of users completely based upon to the database, and these type of users using that purpose, so maybe referred as standalone users. Okay, if you observe here, so this one is the naive users. Okay, in the last class also I'm saying about this. So who are not having the programming knowledge. So those type of users will be, okay. So these type of users will be referred to as naive users. Okay, actually here some mistake is there. So I will try to cover this. Okay, naive users. This is the spelling actually. So that means these users not having the programming knowledge. These users who are existing the application to interact with the database. For example, online library system. For example, if you are consider the library, so in that library, some persons are there to performing the operations, but they do not having the any type of the programming knowledge. They simply interacting with the some interface. So that means they can easily operate this operations, but they do not have but they don't having any type of the programming knowledge. That type of the users will be referred as naive users. For example, in the case of railway reservation, so one of the person maybe operate they can provide the reservation for the users or customers, right? But that particular person is not having the programming knowledge, but they can easily access with the interface. So ADMs, so which is the existing application and uses them to interact with the database, fulfill their requests. So that means these naive users completely based upon to the some interfaces. So next one is the important user, that is database administrator. In the exam point of view also asking so many times, what are the roles of DBA, explain. So maybe asking the question in some type of situation 7 marks, then how we can elaborate that. So at the time of the situation you need to based upon some examples, so you can create some examples how they create the users, how it will be send permissions. So previously I mentioned about that. So database administrator can able to create the users, and he can giving the permissions to the users. I'm right or not? At the same time he can drop the users. At the same time he can restricting the users, and he can only send only particular permissions, only insert operation, only select operation, so only update operation, so like this. So he can give the permissions on the particular operation for the users also. So all these operations are done by using the database administrator. The name is in place. So who is the control, who is having the total control on the database? So actually he is not a developer, just he is receiving the application from the developers. Now that application is maintained by the database administrator, so he can maintain the data, that's it. Okay, that means he can just giving the controls, who are the allowed to the accessing the database, who are not allowed to accessing the database. So that means he is only responsible for to allowing the authorized users to accessing the database. Okay, so now try to see, DB is a person having control over the data in the program. DB is a person having all authorities and responsibilities of the database. Okay, and database administrator manages DBMS for an enterprise. So the DBA designs schemas. What is the meaning of schema? So the design of the database will be referred as a schema. Provides security, restores the system after a failure, and periodically tunes the database. Tunes the database means nothing but performing the filtering to meet the changing user needs. So that means all these are the functionalities of database administrator. So the first one is, so design the schemas, provide the security, restore the system whenever occurring the failure. So then and periodically performing the modifications. Okay, so application programmers develop applications that use the DBMS functionality to access and manipulate the data, and end users invoke these applications. The DBA is responsible for many critical tasks. So installing and upgrading the DBMS server. So that means he is the responsible for installing and upgrading the DBMS servers. So that means in some type of situations, so those type of servers connected with some other applications. At the time of the situation, he is the responsible person to activate like that. So DBA is responsible for installing new DBMS servers for the new projects. He is also responsible for upgrading these servers. There are several new versions maybe occurred or maybe developed every day. So according to the market or situation, so he can change the environment. So if there are any failure in upgradation of the existing servers, he should be able to revert the new changes back to the older version, thus maintaining the DBMS working. So he is also responsible for updating the service packs, fixes, so patches to the DBMS server. So that means if any type of the problem is there, he is the responsible for, he is the responsible person to recover the errors. So design and implementation, designing the database and implementing also DBA responsibility. He should be able to decide the proper memory management, file organization, error handling, log maintenance, etc. for the database. So that means, so he is controlling the users and he is maintaining the data in the file organization and maintaining the log maintenance. So that means how many users are logged in at that particular time. So like this. So how much of time is accessed by the last user. So in this type of way, each and every information is maintained by the DBA and performance tuning. So that means changing the data. So that means whenever occurring the redundancy, so then try to reduce that redundancy. So through, so delete some unnecessary data. Okay, since database is huge and it will have lots of tables and data constraints and indices, there will be variations in the performance from time to time. Also, because of some designing issues or data growth, the database will not work as expected. So that means if you are not performing the changes, so then definitely occurring the problems. So it is the responsibility of DBA to tune the database performance. He is the responsible to make sure all the queries and programs work in a fraction of seconds and migrate the database servers. Sometimes users using Oracle would like to shift SQL server to or some Netiza. So it is the responsibility of DBA to make sure that migration happens without any failure and there is no occurring the loss of data. So that means in some type of situations, we need to migrate. So nothing but we try to combine with the or maybe embed with the some other one. So at the time of the situation, so maybe occurring some loss of data also. So that is also the responsibility of DBA to recover the data. Okay. So backup and recovery. So proper backup and recovery programs needs to be developed by DBA and has to be maintained by him. This is one of the main responsibility of DBA. Data or objects should be backed up regularly so that if there is any crash, it should be recovered without much effort and data loss. So security, DBA is responsible for creating various database users and roles and giving them different levels of access and rights. So documentation. So documentation means, so here we are maintain the data. So in the case of software engineering, we are studying about this same, right? So after developing any type of the application or project, so we need to give some documentation to the end users. So that documentation will be used to use it how we are using that application. So in which type of way we are using the controls. So here also we need to perform the documentation. So that means how we are performing the backup, how we are migrate, how we are upgraded the servers. So all this information is maintained in the documentation. So this documentation is used for new persons also. If any person is changed, so then a new person will be easily understood by you with the help of documentation. So DBA should be properly documenting all his activities so that if he quits or any new DBA comes in, he should be able to understand the database without any effort. He should basically maintain all his installation, backup, recovery, security methods. He should keep various reports and about database performance. So, so these are the functionalities, sorry, responsibilities of DBA. So we try to discuss about the next topic in the next class. Okay. Uh, so maybe I'm maybe a little bit fast. So don't try to get confused. So why? Because we are already repeating the session, right? So we are revising the first unit topics now. Okay, and better you try to also revise the units from first unit to third unit again. So why? Because maybe in front we are having the first minute. So better you try to face that. Okay. Uh, we will try to discuss remaining topics in the next class. So maybe our next topic is data model. So we're already discussing about that. What is the data model? What is relational data model? What is network data model? What is hierarchical data model? Okay, so in this type of way, we try to discuss some of the important topics of the data models. So data models are used for to giving the description about the data. Okay, so that is the purpose of data model. So we try to discuss in the next class. So if you're having any type of the doubts, you can ask me now. So otherwise, I will end the session today. If you're having any type of the doubts, you can ask me now. So otherwise, I will end the session. I think I'm giving already some of the queries in the last class. I'm asking how we are creating the silence table, how we are creating the reserves table, how we are creating the boats table. So if possible for you, please unmute yourself once. Please, all of you, try to unmute unmute anyone, please. Try to talk with me now. So if any person is trying in your phones, how we are display the sailor names, who are reserving the red color board, who are reserving the green color board, who are reserving on the same day. So I will try to explain in the next class if you are not doing that. So if you are trying that, please try to explain. So which type of errors may be occurred. So if possibility is there, please try to install that software in your phones because this practice is need very need for to the CSC students. So I'm already saying about this. This is the one of the core subject. Okay, better you try to pay some attention, more attention on this subject, and this is one of the easiest subject also. Okay, if any person is try to answer that queries, just I'm giving simple queries. So what are who are the sailors? So just I'm asking sailor names who are reserving red color board. So and we are already completed the third unit also. Just we are having two topics. If you complete the two topics, then definitely then automatically complete the third unit also. So that's why I'm revision from first unit. If you're having any doubt about the doubts, you can ask me now. Okay, if you are not having the possibility, not if you are not having the possibility now, you can contact me personally also. Okay, may I end the session now. So we will try to discuss on the queries in the next class. We will try to discuss in the next sessions. Okay, first of all, we'll first complete the first unit. Next, we go for the second unit. Next, we will try to practice those queries. Okay. Thank you, Ananda. Thank you.